There's a very specific moment most people don't talk about. It's not when you're inside Dollar Tree, and it's not when you're checking out. It happens later, at home, when something breaks, when something runs out, when you're annoyed, and then you realize, I literally saw something like this at Dollar Tree. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. How many times have you paid more later for something you could have grabbed cheaply if you'd just known it actually lasted? That's not bad luck. That's missing information. This list is about those items. We're starting simple. Small practical things people underestimate. But each one escalates, in usefulness, trust, and regret. And the final item? That's the one people genuinely wish they had grabbed more of. Stay with me, because this is where Dollar Tree quietly stops feeling cheap and starts feeling smart. 10. Colombia. Penne pasta, $1.25. What most people miss about this item is not the pasta itself. It is the moment it saves later when everything feels like effort. This is the kind of food that waits quietly until you need it. No expiration panic and no rush to use it fast. That is why it fits perfectly into a list about lasting for years. This is not about being cheap or cutting corners. It is about removing stress from a normal weekday night. Because long-lasting items reduce decisions when you are tired. They sit there ready while everything else feels complicated. And that is a form of value people underestimate. Think about how many times this exact situation happens. You open the fridge and nothing feels worth cooking. You do not want to spend more money, but you also do not want another problem to solve. This prevents that moment from even existing. That is why this sells out faster than it looks like it should. Not because people love pasta, but because once it works, once it becomes a backup habit, and backup habits are the hardest things to replace, especially when they quietly save you money over time. So be honest for a second. Have you ever skipped a simple item like this, then paid more later because you had no option? That feeling comes up again later in this list. And the next item fixes a problem you face even more often. 9. McCormick silicone spatula, $1.25. What most people overlook about the McCormick silicone spatula at $1.25 is how long a simple kitchen tool is supposed to last. This is not something you replace every few months. It quietly stays useful while others fall apart. That is why it belongs in a list about lasting for years. The frustration always comes from cheap tools. Wood cracks after washing. Plastic melts when you are not paying attention. And suddenly cooking feels annoying instead of easy. This removes that irritation completely. Silicone holds up through heat and time. It does not absorb smells or stains. It does not chip or soften after regular use. And later people realize they never had to replace it because it just kept working without effort. That is why this disappears from shelves. Not because it looks exciting, but because once someone upgrades one bad tool, they never want to go back to frustration. And that change sticks for years. So think about this honestly. How many kitchen tools do you still keep? Even though you hate using them every time? Those small annoyances add up faster than you think. And the next item solves a problem you only notice when it fails. 8. Green extension cord, 6 feet, $1.25. What people miss about the green extension cord at $1.25 is how long it stays useful once it enters your home. This is not a one-time solution. It becomes part of your setup without you noticing, and years later, it is still doing its job. The frustration shows up in small moments. The outlet is just out of reach. The lamp cord falls short. The charger barely makes it to the table, and everything feels slightly annoying. This fixes that instantly and permanently. Once it is in place, you stop thinking about it. You use it every day without effort. And later people realize it never stopped working. Because simple tools age better than expected. That is why people regret not buying more than one. Not because it looks exciting, but because one solved a problem and revealed others. And suddenly every room needs one. That is how it quietly sells out. So think about this for a moment. How many times have you moved furniture or devices just to reach an outlet that was too far? Those small adjustments cost time and patience. And the next item solves a problem you are already overpaying for. 7. Brush buddies. Charcoal floss picks, 75 CTD. Dorn 25. What people underestimate about the Brush Buddies charcoal floss picks at War 25 is how much convenience controls everyday behavior. This is not about dental care trends. It is about removing friction from a habit that most people already struggle to keep. The frustration is simple and familiar. You know flossing matters, but it feels inconvenient or easy to postpone. So you skip it without thinking, and that choice repeats itself quietly. These floss picks change that dynamic. They sit there, ready with no setup, no extra steps, and no excuses. These floss picks change that dynamic. They sit there ready with no setup, no extra steps, and no excuses. That is why people regret not grabbing another pack. Not because floss is exciting, but because running out feels surprisingly annoying. Once it becomes effortless, you depend on it, and dependent items never stay in stock. Quick pause here for a moment. If this kind of list helps you avoid missing useful finds, consider subscribing to Frugal Steals, no hype and no pressure. And the next item lasts much longer than most people expect. 6. LA's Totally Awesome All-Purpose Cleaner, $1.25. What makes LA's Totally Awesome Cleaner at $1.25 is easy to doubt is how ordinary the bottle looks on the shelf. Nothing about it suggests long-term reliability. And that hesitation is exactly why people skip it, until they finally try it once. The frustration shows up in every home. You buy one cleaner for the kitchen, another for floors, another for stains, and clutter slowly takes over your space. This quietly replaces most of that. Counters, floors, and unexpected messes. One bottle doing the work of several. And later, people think they overcomplicated everything by paying more for less flexibility. That trust builds fast once it proves itself. Not because of branding, but because it keeps solving problems without drama. People rebuy it without thinking, and they tell others because it earned that trust. So think about this for a moment. Have you ever been surprised by a cleaner that just worked and wondered why you wasted money before? That realization keeps coming in this list, and the next item is something you will still be using years from now. 5. Scrub Buddies Microfiber Towels, $2.25. What people underestimate about the Scrub Buddies microfiber towels at $1.25 is how long a simple cleaning cloth is supposed to last. They do not look impressive or high-end. They just quietly keep working wash after wash. That is why they belong in this list. The frustration shows up over time. Paper towels disappear faster than expected. Cheap rags thin out and fall apart. And you keep buying replacements without noticing. That cycle gets expensive quickly. These towels break that pattern. You wash them and use them again. They stay effective without losing purpose. And later people realize how much waste they created before just to solve the same small messes. That is why people do not switch back. Once reusable becomes normal, disposable feels unnecessary, and running out of paper towels feels avoidable. That shift is why these sell out quietly. So think about this honestly. How much money do you think you have thrown away on items meant to be used once and tossed? Those small habits add up over years, and the next item saves you from a very annoying moment. 4. Tool bench. Hardware screwdriver. Set, 6-piece. Yolshi 5. What people miss about the tool bench hardware screwdriver set at WAR 25 is how long a basic tool is meant to stay useful. This is not something you replace every year. It sits in a drawer and waits until the exact moment you need it. The frustration always arrives unexpectedly. A battery needs changing. A handle starts to loosen. A small repair becomes annoying because the right tool is missing. This set removes that problem permanently. You fix the issue in minutes. No waiting and no extra expense. And years later, the same tools are still there doing the same job without effort. That experience changes how people think. Fixing one thing leads to fixing more. Confidence replaces hesitation. And suddenly, small problems stop feeling expensive. That shift is why this sells out quietly. So think about this for a second. What is the last thing you paid someone to fix that you could have handled in 2 minutes? Those moments add up over time. And the next item is something most people underestimate badly. 3. LED light bulb, A19, 60W equivalent, $25. What people overlook about this LED light bulb at $25 is how long it quietly keeps working without attention. It does not feel like a big upgrade. It just replaces a problem people are used to. And then it disappears from your thoughts. The frustration always comes at the worst time. A room goes dark unexpectedly, you realize the bulb burned out again, and suddenly a small issue interrupts your day. That cycle repeats more than people notice. This breaks that pattern completely. LED bulbs last year after year. You install it once and stop thinking about it. And later people realize how long it has been since they last replaced a light. That is why people switch and never go back. Not because it feels exciting, but because constant replacement feels unnecessary. Once the problem disappears, you do not want it to return. So think about this honestly. How many times have you replaced the same bulb in the same room over the years? That money and effort add up quietly. And the next item lasts even longer than you expect. 2. Glass storage jar with lid, $25. What people underestimate about the glass storage jar with lid at $25 is how permanent it feels once you start using it. It looks decorative at first, but quickly becomes something you rely on, because it never seems to wear out. The frustration with plastic shows up over time. Containers stain after a few uses. They crack or warp, and they hold smells you cannot remove. That annoyance slowly builds. Glass avoids all of that. It stays clean and solid. It does not absorb odors, and it keeps doing the same job year after year without asking for replacement. That is why people switch and never look back. Once glass becomes normal, plastic feels temporary and frustrating. And the idea of replacing containers feels unnecessary. That mindset drives fast sellouts. Now, stay with me for this last one, because this final item pays off everything promised. It is the one people truly regret skipping, especially after they understand how long it lasts, and it changes how Dollar Tree feels forever. 1. Glass storage bowl with lid, $1.25. What makes the glass storage bowl with lid at $1.25 so easy to miss is that it looks ordinary on the shelf. Nothing about it signals long-term value, and that is exactly why people walk past it until they feel the frustration later. Leftovers spoil faster than expected. Plastic containers warp over time. Lids stop matching. And suddenly storing food feels annoying. That problem repeats itself constantly. This bowl removes all of that. Glass holds up without changing shape. The lid fits the way it should, and year after year it stays useful without needing replacement. That is why people regret not buying more. Not because it felt exciting in the store, but because it solved a daily problem permanently. Once people realize that, they come back and find it gone. And this brings everything full circle. If you ever missed something at Dollar Tree, then paid more later to fix the same problem, that was not bad luck. That was missing information.